Hello, everyone. My name's Chris Hewitt, and welcome to this special Camel Chat. And today we're joined by Karen MacDonald, who has had a very varied life. First, an outdoor pursuits instructor, then a firefighter, then an events organizer, and now a sports therapist. But what she's probably best known for is being the first and last woman ever to represent Team UK in Camel Trophy, where she took part in Mongolia in 1997. However, her Camel Trophy journey didn't stop there. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Karen, welcome.
Hi.
I think your story probably starts on two wheels rather than four. So would you like to start off by telling us what you did before Camel Trophy and how you got involved?
Having flunked most things at school, I became a water sports instructor and a skiing instructor. But I've always been a cyclist as well. So I did a lot of touring and stuff like that. During my time of kind of traveling around the world doing those sorts of things, I got into a few off-road triathlons, which were pre-adventure racing, and into a bit of mountain bike events as well, which were more longer distance and carrying your own kit and navigating and stuff like that. So my 20s were kind of just full of sport, either working it or playing it. After about, I think it was eight ski seasons and 4 seasons of having my own business in France, which was water sports and mountain biking. I came back to the UK and I was like, do you know what? I need to go and get a real job. I don't know that you call it fall into, because it's quite difficult to get into, but I became a firefighter, and it affords quite a lot of time off, which meant that I could do loads more biking. I raced for the fire brigade and did quite well in that, because there was hardly any girls in the fire brigade then. So the UK mountain bike teams wanted the girls, so I was the only one, so I had to race against all the blokes. I went to the European champs and the world champs for the fire brigade. And my trying to get into Camel Trophy, I'd heard about it, but I didn't know the process of how you got into it or anything like that. But one night I was on night shift, and we'd finished all the stuff that we were supposed to be doing, and I was just flicking through a mountain bike magazine, and just, those, it used to be, you'd write off to loads of little free competitions, and it was basically a marketing tool, but I was just writing off to all these free things because I had some time on my hands and it was just something to do. And I got a letter back a few weeks later saying I hadn't won a Camel Trophy watch, but I was obviously into the sports. Did I want to have a go at getting into Camel Trophy? So I was like, oh, I better look this up, because I was like, well, I'm not a forward driver, so how do what's this about? And that's when they changed to a multi-sport year. So my year was the first year that involved mountain biking, kayaking, and orienteering, as well as the four-wheel driving. I kind of thought, oh, okay, yeah. So I wrote back saying yes, and then this. All I can say is this application form came through that looked like I was applying for a job, and it just threw me. I was like, oh my God, I can't, there's no way I'll get in. I'm rubbish at English. So I was like, so I got a boyfriend to help me write that out and kind of translate what I was thinking onto paper, and got into I think it was 100 of us went to Eastner. So Eastner, it was sometime over the winter, can't actually remember, probably end of 96, and I turned up and I just looked around and I'm like, oh my God, I've got no chance. There was just racing snakes everywhere. It was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna I'll get my little bike out and I'm just gonna have fun, because this, I've probably going to be sent home on day one. And so yeah, we were told to set up our own tents and then like meet somewhere, and we started doing loads of biking and running and loads of digging Land Rovers out of ditches and winching and campfires. You know, it was like 24 hours of just full-on stuff that was just good fun with a whole load of people that were really nice people. So it was just really a really good first day of getting into this process. But I was like, you know, I've got no chance. And the end of, I think, no, it must have been the daylight, because at the end of that day, they read out a load of names and said, right, you lot on that side and you lot on that side, and that side you're all staying, you lot can go home. And I was like, oh my God, I'm staying. So it was like, yeah, I get another 24 hours of fun. So yeah, and looking at some of the people that got rejected, I was like, yeah, they're heaps faster than me. This is a bit weird. You know, I must have done something right. So maybe it was just the fact that I could do all of the sports, and maybe some people could only do one thing or whatever. And so I had another, and you know, we had loads of stuff going overnight as well. I remember digging a Land Rover out of a really big mud pit in the middle of the night. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning or something, and we were caked, but it was just good fun. And you know, all of the people that were working on it, you know, seemed to be enjoying themselves as well. So it was just really, really good. And at the end of that day, so that was the Sunday, we got, they read out 10 names and said, you're staying. And I was like, okay, I'm in the final 10 now, I better start trying. So yeah, I was like, and I think it was about then that I found out that they'd never had a girl compete as well. So I was like, oh, there's 9 blokes and 1 girl. I'll try my hardest. But my character is, I forget that and I just have fun, because it's just sport and it's just good fun. So the next day, it was just lots of learning, lots of running around, lots of falling over, lots of laughing, lots of people taking photographs of you, people interviewing you, all of that stuff, learning all the driving stuff, and mechanics as well. Like, you know, they made us change wheels and do stuff in the engine as well, just to see what we were like. And I got into final 6. So yeah, I was like, okay, this is good. So
well, I suspect you had a little bit of an advantage, because I believe you'd previously taken part in kind of like the bicycle equivalent of Camel Trophy, the Polaris Challenge.
yeah.
Probably the event that's as close to Camel Trophy as you can get, but on 2 wheels,
Yeah.
or certainly 2 wheels without an engine.
Yeah, so that was so especially in its first few years of doing that, it was pretty gnarly. So it was you mountain biked with for 2 days, and it was all navigation. So you had to plot your course. You got given you had the map the night before, but you got given the checkpoints, you know, as you turned up to the event. And you had to plot all of that. So you had to get your navigation right by, you know, being able to plot grid references and stuff like that. It was all on OS Maps, so it's nice and easy. And then you knew that you had 7 hours the first day to ride around this, you know, and it could be, you know, a big area. So as you went over the start line, you were given which checkpoints were open for that day. So you then would plot the real route that you would do that day and just set off. And I did mostly the first few I did mostly as in teams, and then I went on to solo as well. So mostly I did that in teams, in female teams, or as a solo. Once I got into Camel Trophy, I did it with my Camel Trophy partner as well, a couple of times. And yeah, and then you're carrying your tent and your cooking stuff and everything like And the remote camp is you're only given that after the start line as well, so you didn't know where that was, and that's somewhere else on the map, and then you're camping overnight. So there was an event in March and there was an event in October. So they could be really gnarly weather, or they could be quite nice. So you just had to be prepared for anything. And then the next day you woke up and you got given the new checkpoints for that day, which could be some of the same ones, all of the same ones, or all of the ones on the map, or just, a few of them. And you had 5 hours to get back to the finish, and you were given penalties if you were late. So it was very similar to some of the racing that we were doing in Camel Trophy, with the navigation style of stuff, and the orienteering that we did. But yeah, I was quite good at it. I might not have been the fastest cyclist, but putting the navving and the biking together, and the route choicing and the thinking on your feet became very natural to me. And yeah, I did quite well at those. I ended up working for them as well. and organising Polaris Challenge.
So what I see is a picture of you kind of standing now. You're at Eastnor Castle. You've done the selections, and in a matter of months, Land Rover and Camel Trophy are going to be handing you the keys to a brand new Sanglo Discovery. You've got a matter of months to be ready to represent your country.
Yes.
That's more than one step, and that must be pretty daunting.
Yeah, especially as in the group of 6, I was the worst runner. I think all of it. There was only one guy, I think, that knew more about four-wheel driving than the rest of us. That most of us were more into the other sports, so we all got taught that by Bob and Joe and Tim and people like that, and Carl, on various different weekends. And then Gareth, who was our UK coordinator, was training for a marathon. So he basically just made us run everywhere just to get me fitter in my running. It was like, it didn't matter what we did, we had to run it. So I had to do a lot of running training because my body isn't a running. My body later became a runner, but it wasn't at the time. It was definitely a cyclist and a kayaker. So yeah, a lot of, it was nearly every weekend, and I was working in the fire service at the time, and they were so proud that I was getting through these stages that they gave me the time, extra leave to go and do these things, or I could swap shifts and work more during the week so that I could get to all of these training situations. And then after a few months, they whittled us down to the 4 that were then going to go to the international selections. And that was in Spain, near Seville in Spain. So yeah, it was pretty amazing being, having seen the Eastner setup and how big that felt to us. We then turned up in Spain, and we'd been given all of our clothing and given how to have interviews, and how much you had to get, kind of say, Land Rover and Camel Trophy and things like this, and just get all of it. So we got prepped, and then we got there, and it blew our minds. It was incredible. So they had this massive construction of an arch with Land Rovers on top of it, and it looked amazing. It just looked like you were part of something massive. And that was the first time it kind of came home, I think, to kind of how big this thing was, because it just felt UK-ish before then. And yes, you knew that you'd seen the videos and you'd seen what other people, and you'd met them, because most of the people working were past participants. But then when you turned up in Spain, it was like, oh my God. And then, of course, all the other countries were there with their Final Four as well. And it was just massive. It was incredible what they built for us to. So I remember doing an obstacle course with a bike. So, like a high ropes course, we had to do that with a bike. and things like this. And it was just hilarious because you couldn't cycle half of it. I mean, I couldn't anyway. Like going along rope bridges with your bike and it's got little planks. I was just falling off all over the place, but it was just good fun. But it was about how you got yourself through those situations that you clearly couldn't bike, but you could work out different ways of doing things. So it was all a lot of problem solving. So they were seeing how you were working in teams and stuff like this, and building rafts and getting a Land Rover from one side of a lake to another. So very similar to some of the stuff they'd done in the big events previous, but without the kind of jungle mud. It was very hot in Spain.
And the you were being pitted against not only the three other Team UK potentials. There would have been about 80 people altogether who were kind of competing for their ticket to Mongolia.
Yeah.
Was it a cutthroat competition? Was there teamwork involved? Were you beginning to see in other nationalities who was likely to be the front leaders at all, or was it still everything to play for?
I think you saw, so we were kind of split into little groups and we kind of were doing different activities at different times. So the groups that you were with, there was 4 different countries in our group. You definitely saw that, but you kind of got to see, you could see the people that were doing it fast, but then they might not have been the ones that then got in because something else that you didn't know that they couldn't do and stuff. So you didn't, at that stage, you didn't know what the people at Camel Trophy wanted. So you just had to be yourself. And if that worked, it worked. And if you were, the fastest and the right, person that worked in a team, or because you knew you were going to be working in a team of 2, or there was loads of things that were coming at you that you didn't know about. That you could see there was some really good, there was amazing characters. Everybody was lovely, and it was just there was probably quite some very, very competitive people. And I consider myself quite competitive, but maybe I wasn't quite as competitive then as I am now, because I've done a lot more competitive stuff since. I don't know. I expect someone else will tell me something different. But yeah, I think in the 4 of us, so unfortunately Simon, who I now know, he lives just down the road from me, one of the final UK 4, busted his shoulder on the first mountain bike section or whatever. And it was like, I'm sure he would have got in. He was really good at everything. And he won't mind me saying it. I still have to bend his shoulders now, so he's quite good at throwing himself off his bike. But yeah, it's and then there was down to 3 of us for another day, and then they bought one of the final 6 back, which happened to be his brother. Then he came in, so we formed more of a threesome of competitiveness because there wasn't someone for the first 2 days. So it was a bit odd, our situation, because we were like that. But then as soon as Ben turned up, we all got on like a house on fire again, and it all went back to 4, and we had a good time. Being competitive against it. I'm not sure whether they did, but I definitely kind of, I don't know whether I would have like gone, oh my God, I'm not as fast as this person, or I'm not, it was too much fun to think that was bad. It felt like I could do different things better than others. So we were, we all had our fortes. I think it was Ben that had never kayaked or something, so I actually had to teach him how to kayak. So they put me with him in the kayaking because I was a kayak instructor. So it came out with different. You could do different things, even if you weren't the strongest at all of it. But yeah, so there was big competition, but I'm not sure it showed all of the time against each other.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you a spoiler because throughout that competition, you were one of the successful too, and of course the other was Trevor Smith. So how did you and Trevor find out that you were Team UK for Mongolia '97? Was it at that selection, or were you kind of like all sent home while the selectors made their final decision?
So we got to the end of the week, and then they threw us a massive party in this massive tent. So nobody knew anything. We're all still in all our fours, and they put on a massive show, unveiling the Land Rover that we were going to be driving. Put a band on, lots of food. You know, just like an end of that week. Kind of well done, everybody. And then the next day we woke up, and we didn't know what was happening all the time. We just got told to be somewhere and stuff like this. So we woke up the next day, and they got us all on this massive stage outside. Oh no, we were all gathered around the stage, and then they announced each of the two going in alphabetical order. So UK was last up on the on the stage. And they just announced your names there and then, and I just burst into tears. In fact, so did Trevor. It was just like, I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Next stop, Ulaanbaatar.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought Spain was big, you know, as in the setup that they'd got us to go to, and what the effort that had gone in to make it like just incredible. You got to Mongolia, and it's like, you know, we had to set up all our cars and things like that first, and we had to do get all of the kit in and meet each team had 2 cars, so it was you had your car and a journalist car that followed you, so you met the support driver and then all of the journalists, and then you packed it all up and everything like this. And then we got paraded in front of, now it was either the president or the king, I can't remember. I've completely forgotten. But you've got a flag on your car, your name on the car, and people shaking your hands, and you're like, oh my God, this is so bizarre. And it was right in the middle of the square in the middle of Ulaanbaatar is massive, and all of our cars were all lined up in there as the Camel Trophy does their nice fan for the photographs and everything. And it was just like, oh my God, we're representing the UK. And it was just incredible. Just, yeah, probably, I think both of us were in tears on the way out of there. And I think most of the teams were, because then we went out in convoy, and just like went, and people like little kids wanting to, you know, Mongolia didn't know us. You know, they'd only just opened up as a country, you know, so they didn't know what this thing was, but they all wanted to, like, you know, high five you and stuff like this. It was amazing, just incredible. So yeah, a really good start to a fantastic, I think, 21 days of competition. I think.
So you, if I can just ask you about sort of Mongolia and the people you've mentioned, kind of like the people you've met, you know, and I've been lucky enough to spend a couple of weeks in Mongolia, but it was in a bit of Mongolia which was under military occupation, so I didn't really see real Mongolia, and I'm wondering if you did, or was the Camel Trophy machine, you know, were you whisked in a flash of sandglow through the culture rather than being able to experience it?
No, the good thing about it was the fact that you had, so you were given a coordinate, and you were given a certain amount of time. So in between each stage, so say there was 5 different stages, there would be 3 or 4 days where you basically had to get to those locations, and you could go however you wanted. So, you know, that way, and you could choose which teams you could go with. So you could go as your, you know, yeah, I think you had to have at least 2 teams, so it was at least 4 cars, and then sometimes there might have been like a medical car with you, or a TV car, or you know, another vehicle. But you basically, you kind of hatched a plan with another team, or 3 other teams, and you kind of went, right, we're going there, this is how we're going to get there, and you'd navigate, and you'd just go off by yourself. So everybody just spread and went off, and you could, as long as you were there at a certain time, you then on that certain day, you could do whatever you want in between. So we would go and visit families. You know, we'd get stopped by we got stopped by a guy in a very, very old Land Rover wanting a part, so we helped him fix his Land Rover and things like this. So we got invited into their yurts. We got, you know, had to go sitting on a yak. Just loads of things like that. I've lost your picture at the moment. It's really weird talking to a Camel Trophy.
That's probably a good thing. That's probably a good thing.
It's very old though, talking to a Camel Trophy.
Any local delicacies from the Mongolians? Any yak butter tea or anything like that?
Yeah, yak butter tea. It was disgusting, but we drank it.
I think they know that as well, don't they? But yeah, it's a bit of a challenge.
Yes.
So I think we're beginning to see a difference. We're beginning to see a difference in Camel Trophy. So we're hearing in a series of these interviews, we kind of hear how initially the Camel Trophy was a sort of a single long convoy, and then as it became bigger and more logistically challenging, those convoys got split up into smaller convoys. And now you're describing, you know, a small group of people kind of exploring the wide outdoors, which I think is a new level of adventure that Camel Trophy hadn't had before.
Yes, and I think it suited the country as well, because the country is vast and open. You know, it's not like some of the ones that I went to previously in the jungle, where you couldn't spread out because you were basically digging each other out of holes and through tracks and stuff. Whereas it was a bit more like the desert versions, that it was open and vast. So we travelled really far north up to Hovsgol, a big lake right in the north of Mongolia. So you were going through mountains and over passes, and it was just stunning and big. And then, you know, a few days later, you'd be at the location where they told you to get to, which was also part of the competition, because it was you were told where to get to and the time you had to get there, and anybody and whatever route you took was mapped, because we were being GPS tracked, and whoever got the nearest to whichever way I think it was Mark Day had driven was winning in that competition. So, and he wasn't picking particularly the fastest route, he was picking, you know, different versions. So he might have been picking it because it was a good way for the tracks, or it might have been good because of it was going over a nice mountain range or whatever. But so it was kind of a competition within the competition as well. So you had that in your mind, but you got to camp out in the middle of nowhere and things like that. So then you got to be in the big bubble again. So you'd get to, like, our first place, I think, was, oh no, the first place was, they called it Turtle Rock because it looked like a turtle. And we had to do a load of competitions there. And then those were the smaller kind of forward driving competitions, like a winching problem or a technical driving problem or a speed driving thing or something, but a setup rather than you know, just in wherever you were. And then there was mountain bike competition, so they could have been like, you know, just an uphill race, or they could have been through technical stuff, or they could have been navigating. Same with the running. At some point we ran over a volcano, which rips your trainers to shreds. They are so sharp, volcanoes. And kayaking could have either been on lakes or in rivers or at white water or flat water. So there was lots of different situations, and that's when you were all together doing those mini competitions. So it was all fast and furious for a couple of days doing those, and then you got given a new location and off you go to that one. So when we got to Hovsgol, actually, we were staying in yurts and breaking the ice to have our first bath after about a week in the lake. That was so cold. Luckily, the yurts have nice wood burners in, so they got us warm again.
Okay, so I think one of the kind of like the checkpoints where you all had to meet up was called Erdene Bolgan. And forgive my pronunciation, any Mongolians who are here with us at the moment. And I understand there was a little bit of thrills and spills on the journey there. I'll just see if the technology allows me. I'll just show you a little picture. Let's see if I can do it. Where is it? There we go. I just need to bring that up. Can you give it a moment or two to come through? Can you? I don't know if you can see that.
Yep. I have a few more of those as well.
I can imagine. Would you like to explain what's going on here, and hopefully either point the finger of blame at Trevor or maybe take it yourself?
Oh, it's so my fault. I was driving. Yeah, so we were in a convoy of probably 4 teams, maybe 3 teams. Definitely, I remember. I can't remember. Anyway, maybe 3 or 4 teams, and we were in a car maybe 5 behind, or 3 or 4, 5 behind the first people, and we were going quite fast along a really easy gravelly track, and we were radioing if there was anything on the roads. You know, the first person in the convoy, all the convoy procedures of like telling the people behind what's going on and everything. And I think they came across a very, very sharp bend and didn't have time to radio, and the next car went through in a cloud of dust, and by the time we came through there was so much dust we hadn't been warned about it, because they were still trying to, you know, get through it up there, and I messed the corner up so badly. I didn't even see the corner coming, so it was a very last minute turn, which was obviously too quick, because as I went into the corner, then there was the like a bank in front of me, so I had to then either crunch into that or avoid it. So I turned too quickly, and we just went over about 1.5 times and into a field of cows, scattered then, and all of our kit everywhere just flew out of the windows, you know, smashed everything. And we landed on our side. That photo showed the vehicle still on its side, and I was kind of up, still holding onto the steering wheel, but kind of up here, and Trevor was down there, and the 2 journalists were in the back, and I was like looking down at him going, "Oh my God, Trevor, you're bleeding!" And it wasn't, it was me bleeding all over him. So yeah, we kind of got ourselves out of that, and of course all of the cars then came back, and we got it all righted back up and everything. And a couple of hours later, I think one of the medical teams turned up, and one of the guys in our convoy had kind of washed out the injury that I had all over my elbow. I was driving like this, and as my elbow was still sticking out the window as we rolled, so it kind of took out quite a bit of elbow. And that when the medical teams turned up, they were like, "Oh my God, you're going home." And I'm like, "I'm not going home. You stitched me up. There's no way I am here. I am not going home. I don't care how much it hurts. Just stitch it up. I'm staying." And they were like, "No, you're going home." I'm not going home. I don't care. Look, I can move. I'm okay. I just need stitching up. So yeah, I had quite a lot of morphine to get me through that the next few days. It was.
And morphine really helps with the driving, I find, and also.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I should have been on morphine tube in the first place. But
You wouldn't have been the only person to have had to retire due to an accident during Mongolia '97, because I think one of the Swiss team had an accident on a mountain bike,
yes.
and one of the journalists stepped in to replace them.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
And I guess we often, I mean, clearly the stars of the Camel Trophy show are the two team members.
Yeah.
But we often forget that there were journalists in the car with you. How much do they get involved? I mean, do they become part of the team, or are they observing and kind of present but never seen? Are they flies on the wall or flies in the ointment?
So we had a different set of journalists for each of those kind of 4 or 5 sections that we did. So all of them were very different. So they all came from different newspapers or magazines or TVs or whatever it was that they were representing, and they all had a different idea. So the first 2 that we had were mucking in and helping us cook and helping us get things on and off the car and stuff like that. Then the next 2, I think it was this way around, they just wanted to watch and look and wanted us to do things for them and stuff. So it was anything in between, basically. We either had to do everything for them, or they did loads for us, and there was everything in between. So it was just a personality thing. So if they wanted to do it, then they did it. We didn't force anybody to do anything. And if they didn't, it was kind of like, right, you're just going to have to get out of the way then, because we need to climb over the car. and the 2 that were in the car that when it rolled, those 2 were, I think, the 2 that did loads of helping. So that was really good, because they were a bit shocked. They're quite young guys, I think. Can't remember what paper or anything they'd come from. But yeah, they were kind of into helping out and going, what can we do? Even if they hadn't put up a tent before, they're like, right, okay, how do we do this? And watch us and stuff like this. So yeah, some journalists were really into it, and they'd been on loads of Camel Trophies before, so they were really useful because they knew what to do, whereas others were new, and they needed slightly more information to help them get through it as well, especially when I throw them around in a vehicle.
It's certainly they probably got a little bit more than they bargained for, and possibly a bit of an extreme close up as well.
Yeah.
So the events were obviously multidisciplinary. The driving has been maybe a little problematical. How do you know how do they kind of work out who is winning? And indeed, is that even important to you while you're out there? Are you being competitive while you're out there, or are you having, you keep I warned you before we started doing this video, don't use the F word, but you've been saying fun a lot. So, has the fun overtaken the competition, or have you got winning in sights? And if you have, how do you know how you're doing?
So we were definitely very competitive, and also before the crash we were doing quite well. I think we were in 6th place. So we were being very competitive. We were getting quite good results in our kayaking and our biking, and our driving. There was different point systems. So the thing that got you in between each of those stages was one competition, and I can't remember what he called it now, but it was a driving award. So at the end, you would have got an award for that. And then at each of those locations that we had to get to when we were doing all the competitions in the individual sports, you then had an individual competition in each of those. So those were very measurable because they were like you either came first or last. So that was easy. So they were either navigating ones and you got through it by getting more points, or they were driving ones, like, you know, those driving competitions when you have to go through posts and not touch things. So there was penalties, or there was flat out racing. So it was all that, those were very measurable. The unmeasurable one was the in between, the driving award that was in between, and we did really well in that, and I think in the end we came second in it, I think. But that, you know, that when after I'd crashed the vehicle, our vehicle wasn't very good for quite a few of the things. So when you had to do competitions where you suddenly had to get out of your vehicle and swap drivers and things like that, we had to climb, our doors didn't open, so we had to climb out the windows and things like this. So, you know, and we only had half a windscreen on the driver's side that you could see out of, so you were driving like this. And our vehicle was a little bit of a hindrance on some of the things. We got given 2 new bikes because we'd completely trashed the other 2. They'd been completely squashed. The kayak was okay. I think we got 2 new kayak helmets because they were completely squashed. So we were given that they put it to all, because it was a competition, it was our fault that we'd had the crash. They put it to all of the other competitors to see if they think that we should have new kit or we should just go on without any kit and therefore not do very well. And they all voted for us to have new kit, so it was like, yes. So we could have
a new Land Rover. They weren't that generous.
No, they weren't that generous. Yeah, it was a bit bent, and we were not allowed to be in any of the photographs after that. So all these convoy pictures, and then Team UK, you're going at the back. But you know, so it was still fun. All of the, you know, the competitions were fun but very competitive. I remember one kayaking one, and I think we'd had to run down this massive bank and as a Le Mans start, and then jump in the kayaks and hoon off down this Whitewater River. And as we were getting in, you can imagine that carnage of 40 people trying to get into these kayaks, double kayaks. There was blades and everything everywhere, and people and everything. And somebody hit accidentally the injury on my elbow, and the scream apparently that I let out, was like everybody in that was up in where all of the camping had been going on was just like, oh my God. And Nick Horner like was running down, the event coordinator running down, just like going, is she all right? And it was like, yes, she's just got one back in the kayak. You know? So yes, it you know, things like that are going to stop people in normal life, but when you're in a competition, it's like, yes, it hurt. I'm just letting out a really bad scream, but I'm just carrying on, and it's the adrenaline. You're just like, yeah, I want to get to the front. No one will bash it then. So yeah, very competitive.
And so eventually, I think there were 3 stages. You would have reached the end with competitions in between. More than 3 stages, maybe.
I think there was more, yeah, but maybe 4 stages.
That it's very, very kind. I'm trying to not sound like a Camel Trophy anorak, so it's like, yeah, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5.
Okay, so you probably know more than me then.
I'm sure the archives will tell us.
Yeah.
And someone will rummage through the archives and let us know.
My album right here.
Oh, amazing. So eventually you're going to reach the finish line. What was the finish line, and what was the finish? You know, was it a race to the finish, or was it kind of a place to reach, and then there's kind of nervous sitting around while scores are added up and spreadsheets are calculated?
So in each section we got told, you know, the leaderboards and stuff like that, and then you go to the next stage. So yes, you did know where you were at every single stage in it all. And then when we got to the last stage, which I think was I can't remember the name of the lake, but it was in the desert in the south. We did all of the competitions there, and then we had the one more driving bit, which was back to the finish, which was near Ulaanbaatar. And I think I don't remember them giving us the results when we were at that stage, but I remember the finish line being in a river. So we were all in our kayaking kit. So that must have been the last competition, and they had this banner, this finish banner across the thing of it. So that was the finish banner for the whole thing, and we all just leapt in, and I think all of our competitiveness went out of the window, and we all just like started like falling around in the water and just laughing and hugging each other and stuff like that. So it was more of the Camel Trophy spirit than a finish line. So yeah, yeah, just lots of hugging. And then wherever that was then we had a little bit of a drive to where they were going to then do the presentations, which they'd set up a big kind of marquee and stuff like that. And it was quite a long drive. So we were all like driving along, and you know, different teams were driving next to each other, and you're just chatting through the windows, and just I think we even swapped cars and drove in other people's cars and things like this. And it was just really good to kind of go, we've done it. and just, you know, get into other people's cars and chat with them, and you know, reminisce about it and stuff like that. And then we all turned up at the finish, and there was a big, you know, you had to do all of the big fan of the cars with everybody cheering it, and then they did the presentations with Team Austria getting the trophy.
So for many people, that would have been the end of their Camel Trophy journey. Of the, you know, the 40 competitors, that's it, and you know, Team Austria get a nice trophy to go home, and everyone else gets a lifetime of memories. But it wasn't the end of your Camel Trophy journey. You were invited back. Can you tell us what you did with Camel Trophy in the years after Mongolia?
Yeah, so it was basically I was asked back to come and help with the next event, but also with the team selections and things like that. So I did quite a bit of work in the UK, and then I got asked back onto the 98 was Chile and Argentina. So I went on a pre-event thing that was getting all of their promo pictures, because they needed set up pictures of us kayaking and mountain biking and things like that. So I did one of those, and then did the event, which was another magical event, basically crisscrossing the country through Chile and Argentina all the way down to Ushuaia. And of course, some of the people that were on your event were there, but also some of the people that you'd seen that were working on your event. So you then got to know them, as well as the competitors that I'd been competed with. So and you became part of this massive family, and the Camel Trophy spirit, that, you know, you got a Camel Trophy Spirit Award on the actual event, but that just went even bigger, because you then got to know all of the behind the scenes people, and how much effort you put into to make that event look good to the competitors and the people that are watching it, and the people that are in it, and the journalists and things like that. And it's like, it's the background of the thing was even better. It was incredible. And working with a load of people that know what they're doing. You know, there were people brought in for various different skills, and the fact that they knew, they ask you back because I think they know how you work in a team, because they've seen you at your worst, or your tiredest or whatever, and they need people to help with that. So yes, it was good fun, but also quite tiring. But yeah, incredible. So, and you get to see some more fantastic countries driving around in those cars and doing those sports. So yeah, incredible. And then 98 was the last vehicle-based one. And then they asked me back to be Team UK coordinator to find Team UK for the 2000, which became the boat-based version. So my background of windsurfing and sailing and driving boats and sailing, all of that was obviously something that they could use. So yeah, I set up the UK selections, and we didn't do that at Eastner because it wasn't the Land Rovers then. It was down in Portsmouth, a completely different event, apart from the fact that it did have mountain biking in it as well, and running, orienteering and running, but also all the boat-based stuff as well. So a completely different set of people turned up. So, yes, they were still into all of their outdoor sports and everything, but it was a very different set of people. It wasn't forward drivers and stuff like this. So I think they needed people like me that were already in that scene to help that kind of transition into that sort of stuff. So yeah, we did the UK selections, which went really well, and we went out to the Dutch Antilles for the international selections, and I don't remember it being all of the teams out there. I can't remember, but a lot of the teams were out there. And then the event was in Tonga and Samoa. So I went out on a pre-scout of that as well, helping with finding locations. They even got me through my diving certificate so that we could go and search for where we were going to put some of the underwater controls and things like this. So it was incredible because I going to a country I'd never been to again, but doing underwater stuff, and and driving these boats around all of these places. When the event turned up, actually Tonga was supposed to be in it, and that had gone into a bit of a military coup, so we had to swap to Samoa, and the Camel Trophy behind the scenes teams literally weeks before the event had to relocate the whole of the Tonga section to Samoa. So
it was Fiji, wasn't it? Fiji had a civil war. Is that right?
Yes. So So we had to not do the Fiji bit. We had to do just Tonga to Samoa, didn't we? Yeah.
And I haven't got my atlas in front of me. I'm assuming that's a considerable upheaval. We're not talking changing from Yorkshire to Bristol, are we? This is huge. It's not just a different country. This is vast distances we're talking about.
Yeah.
That must have been an absolute flurry of activity to change something at such short notice.
Yeah. So I think I was out there slightly earlier than some of the other staff or other country coordinators, because I'd been on that thing the year before or the few months before, whenever it was. So you kind of heard what was going to happen, and we were like, right, this is what we all need to do, and we're all just given tasks, and the team that was sent off to go and do all the new locations, we never saw them because they basically had to just leave the first half of the event and just go and do it, while the rest of us kind of coordinated it, without anybody kind of knowing that there was an upheaval. But they did an amazing job. You wouldn't have known that we suddenly changed countries. And luckily, Samoa was quite near, so in South Pacific terms. But yeah, you kind of. So I think the way we were going to be doing it was going through Tonga and then into Fiji, so across this massive bit of sea across to the bottom end of Fiji. Because we couldn't do that, then I think they changed it to start a different place in Tonga and then go up the country towards Samoa at the end of it. So yeah, it was a complete upheaval. But I don't think anybody knew that was happening. It was all behind the scenes, and it worked really well. So luckily, they're good at their job.
For people who aren't familiar with the Camel Trophy 2000 in the motorboats, it to get an idea of the distance, the crossing between the Pacific Islands of Tonga to Samoa was actually a world record for the longest open sea journey ever conducted by motorboats at the time. So Camel Trophy was pretty groundbreaking. Well, not groundbreaking, water breaking in terms of the records it was making in 2000.
Yeah. I think I've got a little map of it here somewhere. Just because I think the crossing thing was actually on our recce, which was from Tonga to Fiji. I think the Samoa one was slightly shorter.
Right.
Let me just find. I had a map in here earlier on. Okay, I give up. But yeah, loads of pictures. Yeah, so I think that was the way round, because we did that a few months before, or when it was still going to Fiji, and that took us. It was a long journey in those boats. So when you're going over big waves, and it's into the wind as well, you're just like this the whole way. And it was just like you would basically like just being hammered the whole way in dry suits. We must have looked like aliens when we turned up on this beach, though, because we all had big yellow dry suits on, because it was a long journey. That amount of wet, you'd have just been frozen if you weren't in those. We'd sunk a couple of boats and got them back up. We had a little bit of quite big weather going on that trip, and when we kind of turned up at these beaches on an island that hadn't seen an outside for anybody from a foreign country, even from the rest of Fiji, for a long time, but they let us in. We must have looked like aliens, because these boats had frames on, a bit like the Land Rover roll cage, with like kayaks, windsurfers on the top of them, and bikes hanging off the back. And they were, the Camel Trophy colours, and we looked like aliens. But all these kids came running down the beach like, whoa! That was amazing. And then you had every island that you went to, you then the first people that went had to go and meet the king, because they had a king of each island and stuff like this. It was incredible, and you were presented, and then you presented some presents, and they gave something back. So it was a incredible experience to be, people that were invited to those places that they didn't want people coming, because they didn't like outsiders, and yet we look like aliens.
I guess the natural question is, you had the opportunity to be part of 3 very different Camel Trophy events. Mongolia, Tierra del Fuego in Argentina and Chile, and then finally Tonga, Samoa. 3 very different events, each with their own kind of characteristics. I'm imagining, I think I can guess which was your favourite and which is kind of going to be closest to your heart. But which one do you have the fondest memories of?
Oh, Mongolia. It got me in there, and it was just magic. Yeah. Just, I don't know. You only people that have done that thing know that feeling, because there's only 20 countries doing it each year and stuff like this, and it's like you just become a family of people that have got a shared experience, and it's magic. I think that you wish it could have gone on and on and on, but of course it doesn't.
I guess the key part there were two key parts of the team, Trevor and your Land Rover.
Yeah.
What happened to the both of them?
So Trevor lives up in Lancashire, and still mountain bikes and road bikes. So we're friends on Facebook. We've seen each other a few times, and message each other every now and again, like birthdays and stuff like that. He's got a family now. The Land Rover got bought by a girl called Tony Armitage, and she still owns it. So she rebuilt it after its crash initially 20 odd years ago, and it's just had another rebuild about 2 or 3 years ago, because it was another 20 years old. And I went along to see it. So when we went up to somewhere near where she lives, one of the Land Rover centres that I've completely forgotten the name of it. You probably know it. And we just drove it around, and it is exactly how she remembers it being. So she had set it up. She'd got our pens in there, and she'd put all of the things that she asked me about, that we had as we personalised it. Like I had written an L and an R on the windscreen, because when you're navigating, you don't want to remember things, you just need things to be instinct. So because we were having to talk our navigation to the other person, we just wrote things like L and R on everything, so that we didn't have to think which was left and right. It was in instinct to say it and stuff like this. And then there was like where we put our pens and things like this, so we could quickly grab them, and we basically velcroed them to the dashboard, so that you could just quickly grab them and use them and things like this. So it was loads of things like that she'd personalised, and of course it had our name on it. And yeah, just drove it around and round. It was really weird getting back. I was really nervous getting back in it, actually. I did one at Billing as well, that I had to get in and drive it, and I'm like, what happens if I've forgotten how to drive? It's like so it was really weird driving it again. But it was like, oh yeah, this feels normal.
Presumably you weren't allowed to go around any tight gravel bends. No. It's been perfectly restored with the pens and the left and the right, but the windscreen and the smashed windows aren't being recreated.
Yes.
So that sounds like the end of your Camel Trophy story. It drew to a close with the final event in the year 2000. How did that feel to be kind of at the final chapter of Camel Trophy?
It was a bit sad because it's the last one and everything, but then Land Rover came back in with G4, so we got invited back to work on. I got invited back to work on G4 for the first one of those as well, because it was all the same crew. So yes, I did one of those, and then my probably one of the hardest things in my life is when I realised that the second G4 I wasn't invited back for, and it's like my Camel Trophy time has gone, and that was quite sad, because it was a massive part of my life for about 5 years, working with everybody, seeing everybody every year and stuff like that. So yeah, that was hard to take, but new things go on. I was still racing, doing loads of racing actually, and because of things like Facebook, you get to see everybody else that you've become friends with. And I've been on trips like to South Africa, and I've met up with people that were on my event, and some of the workers and things there, and Belgium, and different people from around the world. You've seen that. I even about 3 years ago, I was at a race in Italy, doing a road cycling event, and there was this tap on the shoulder, and it was Johan from Team Spain, from my year. and they just recognised me, and I turned around and I'm like, oh my god! So we had a massive catch up, just chatting with each other. So now we're friends on Facebook and stuff like this. So every now and again you come across someone or you see a vehicle and you're just like, I'm just going to go and talk to them, stuff like that. So yeah, it still lives on, even though I'm not in it. I think it's nice that we've got a world now that you can do stuff remotely, and you get to see what other people are still doing, and there's lots of the people are still working in that environment with the Land Rovers, and still carrying on their own versions of it, or doing other races and things like that. So it's nice to see that kind of, you could just turn up somewhere, and if they're an ex-Camel Trophy person, you've got something in common, even if you can't remember them.
Well, this is certainly something that we will remember, Karen. Thank you very much for being very generous with your time. We've learned an awful lot. We've heard about you meeting the Prime Minister of Mongolia and the King of Tonga. We've learned how to tell the difference between left and right. We've heard about how you've swapped Sanglo for orange, and also that it sounds like the key is to make competition fun.
Yes.
Life. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for sharing all your stories, and next time it will be around a campfire.
Yeah.
We'll share some of that Camel Trophy spirit.
Yeah, no, it'd be good to get the actual campfire version of it, wouldn't it? Hopefully next year we can all meet up again.
Cool. Until then, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Chris. Bye.